What's going on, everybody? Welcome to odds.com and the post-weigh-in recap. I'm your boy Clint from the Die Hard MMA podcast. This is for UFC Vegas 16 coming up here on Saturday. We are ready to rock and roll, folks. This was an exciting day of weigh-ins, and we have a whole lot to talk about. So if this is your first time viewing the post-weigh-in show, this is our last opportunity to see what these fighters are going to look like before they step into the cage tomorrow, and we get a lot of information from them. What I am looking for is body language, certain tells, little details that let us know maybe if they had a bad weight cut, if they're having a hard time, if they don't feel well. Those are the kinds of things that we're looking for that may impact their performance tomorrow. Now, again, this is something I'm not an expert by any means, but I started my career in gambling by playing poker, so watching body language, reading people's eyes, those are the kind of tells that we've been looking for and I've been looking for years. So I put that to use here in MMA, and so far, we've been having a whole lot of success picking up on these last minute little details. Let's jump straight on into this thing. First up, we've got Gian Villante taking on Jake Collier. This is the big one. This is the one everybody was waiting for. We all just had to know what Collier was going to look like coming in this week after last time. So Gian Villante was actually the last person to weigh in. He kept us waiting all the way till the very end. Dude used to be a 205er, probably could have made 185. Now he's up at heavyweight, and he came in at 243. Now, his last time he weighed in, he was 255. So it's good to see that he cut a little bit of weight. He's about 10 pounds lighter, but he's still a decent bit flabby, and I'll be honest, I'm still not impressed. Gian Villante is a training partner with Chris Wiman, and Chris Wiman posted a video on his Instagram a couple of days ago showing them training, and I gotta tell you, the intensity just was not there. Gian Villante was going through the motions. He was not pushing himself. Yes, you can see a picture of him on Instagram wearing a t-shirt and sweating, but he was still lacking what I need to see from a fighter if I want to put money on him, and he is still sitting here as a decent-sized favorite. He's minus 200. We've got about plus 170 on Jake Collier, and it looks like the money is coming in that direction. Collier is a guy who used to fight at 185, disappeared for 3 years, and bumped up not one but two weight classes. He's fighting up at heavyweight, and he tipped the scales again today. 264.5. Now, that was something I was not wanting to see. I was hoping that Jake Collier would get his shit together. I was hoping that he would be coming in motivated and be down in more of the 230 or 240 range, making his way back down to 205 to show us that he's got some kind of intent moving forward for his UFC career. But he didn't do that. Now, he still looked huge. He still looked flabby, but I'll be honest, he looked a little better than last time. It looks like he may have lost a little bit of that fat, chubby weight, and he put on a little bit of that muscle. Now, I know we've all poked fun at Jake Collier on the podcast. We've all made fun of him a little bit online for that weight miss, but he's still got the balls to step into this cage here on Saturday, and it looks to me like he's done a little bit of work to make himself, give himself an opportunity to win this thing. When they did the face-off, something that really surprised me is Jake Collier is the bigger of the two men. He's going to have a 2-inch reach advantage here in this fight, but I thought Gian Villante would look more physically imposing. Now, I'm not just talking about the body weight that they are carrying around, but more of the mass, the broadness of the shoulders, the barrel of their chest. Collier is a bigger man than Villante is. And honestly, it was a very relaxed face-off. Neither guy is taking this very seriously, it appears. But I have no ability to back Gian Villante here. I was hoping that Villante would come in the kind of shape I needed him to be so that I could fade Jake Collier coming in at the top of the scales. But a Jake Collier that weighs 20 pounds more than Gian Villante, that looks like he's in a little bit better shape, is actually going to be a tough out for a guy like Gian, who just does not listen to his corner, does not have output, does not have volume. I gotta tell you, I feel like this is a dog or pass spot after seeing the weigh-ins. Jake Collier is very, very tempting to me, and this is going to be a nasty, sloppy heavyweight fight, and unless one of them just completely gasses and taps out like we saw in Gian Villante's loss to Maurice Green, this one's probably going to decision. I've got to give a shout out to my man, MMA Lock of the Night. He threw out there Jake Collier by decision at plus 550. If you need some action, if you need a sprinkle, now that I've seen these guys at weigh-ins, that's not a bad look. I spent way too long on the very first fight of the day. We've got Ilia Topuria coming in here against Damon Jackson. Both men came in at 145 pounds. Ilia Topuria looked absolutely shredded. This kid is confident. He's built. He's undefeated. Looked good. Damon Jackson came in, and he looked solid as well. This kid looked confident. He was excited. However, he's got to shave his head. I mean, I know I'm not really one to talk, but I do. I chop the whole thing off. It just grows back. He's got a worse receding hairline than me, and buddy, Damon, we got to do something about that for fight day. Now, when they faced off, Jackson was much, much taller than Ilia Topuria. We've talked about this being a physical advantage. Anybody that's got that height, that reach advantage, it's always just one little thing in their favor. However, Ilia Topuria is the wrestler here. That's going to make it easy for him to get in on those hips. We know Damon Jackson doesn't have much of a takedown defense game, and he likes to play off of his back on the mat. So I don't know if that height and reach is really going to make much of a difference in this particular fight. I still like Ilia Topuria, although this line has gotten a bit wide. Everyone's been hammering him basically this entire time, and I still think he wins. But again, this is one where you can't trust him too much because it is a stiff test for a young fighter. Handsome Matt Wiman comes in at 155.5. So does the Monkey King, Jordan Leavitt. And Matt Wiman this guy's been fighting in the UFC forever, and he has never looked physically impressive. He's one of those guys that you could pick a fight with him at a bar and just never know what you're getting yourself into because he does not look like a fighter. He was goofing off on the scale, looked like he did just fine with his weight cut. The dude's been doing this forever. Now, Jordan Leavitt, he came in at 155.5 as well, but he looked really rough. This is a young, undefeated kid who only has half of his MMA game rounded out. He's only got a grappling game. He's not very good at striking, and he looked bad. He was wincing on the scale, and that's something that always tells me that's a huge red flag. When a fighter is physically flinching when they have to move, that's a bad weight cut. He looked a little unstable. He tried to get off the scale as quickly as possible after he was done with his weigh-in, but they called him back up to do his, post-scale flex, and he almost lost his footing. It was not one of the situations where I feel like, he just missed a step. Combined with him wincing, combined with the rapid blinking that we were seeing, him losing his balance coming back up for the flex, very, very bad sign for me. Now, this is one that I've tried to tell people all week. This line is way too wide. Do not trust Leavitt at minus 400, but money is just flowing in on this guy. It's still creeping up. I would caution you not to do that. If he doesn't get that submission, he could very easily lose a decision to a veteran in the sport who has a much more well-rounded game. And even though I never, ever want to bet Matt Wiman, he's extremely tempting to me at plus 325 right now after seeing what I saw from Leavitt on the scale. And on top of that, when they faced off, handsome Matt Wiman is a bigger man. I thought that Leavitt was going to have a size advantage here as well, but he does not. Now, Wiman just does not have much of a takedown defense game. He's totally fine with playing off his back, playing from bottom, but this is a huge step up in competition for Leavitt. Even though Matt Wiman is not a fighter that we consider somebody who's overly dangerous or somebody who's a threat to the division, it's a step up compared to what Leavitt has been facing. And he's gonna face a guy that's now bigger than him, probably stronger than him, was comfortable in the weight cut, might have a better gas tank, and has never been submitted in his UFC career. Unless Leavitt has gas, which now after that weight cut I'm very suspicious of, to grind on Matt Wiman for a full 15 minutes, he might not be able to win this fight, folks. I might end up taking a punt on that plus 325. This is maybe the one and only ever spot that we could back handsome Matt Wiman, especially if that line keeps on getting wider because people are just hammering Jordan Leavitt on the way to this fight. Next up, we've got Luis Smolka taking on Jose Teco Quinonez. Smolka, now this is the one, remember, we put a pin in this one. We wanted to see how this went because Smolka missed weight, had a bad weight cut the last time out, looked really rough, and then we're circling this thing back 2 weeks later. We talked about how that could be really bad for your body. You could look awful, having a hard time cutting it down again, but he came in at 134.5. He made a statement coming in a half pound under the limit instead of hitting 135. And I got to tell you, he looked excellent. He looked so good. He looked fresh. He looked full of energy. And this was something that I was really not expecting to see. He looked fantastic at this weight. Now, Quinonez came in at 135 and he looked good too. There were no issues, no nothing. He's one of these guys that he's kind of string beanie. He never struggles to make 135. And when they faced off, these guys, it was a respectful face off. They kind of kept their distance, but they size up really well. I think that Smolka is the rightful favorite in this spot. I think he's far more dangerous. I think Quinonez, provides opportunities for someone like Smolka to get in there and finish. And as a killer be killed fighter, he's just going to ramp the aggression up. And especially with him coming in healthy, coming in with apparently a good weight cut and having the energy that he needs, I think this may be Smolka's opportunity. I don't mind Smolka at minus 130, and I definitely don't mind taking a shot on Smolka inside the distance at plus 200. I kind of think that's the way to go, and I may end up making this one an official bet. It was an official bet last time out. I like the Smolka side, and now seeing what I see on the scales today, that just reinforces that. I was waiting for that, and I may end up loading back up and putting it on him. Next up, we've got Nate Landwehr taking on Movsar Evloev. Both men come in here at 145.5, and they both looked absolutely shredded. This is a grudge match, folks. This is one where these guys have history. They've been on each other's radar for a long time, from the regional scene all the way over to the UFC scene, and they are ready to go. Both men know what is at stake here for this fight, and you can just tell by the shape that they come in that they were both incredibly motivated for this matchup. Now, when they faced off, they got in each other's faces. They got up in close. It was intense, and I didn't expect to see what I saw. I thought that Nate Landwehr was going to have a significant size advantage on Movsar Evloev. He's the natural 145er, whereas Evloev used to compete at 135, but they sized up pretty well. Nate does have a size advantage, but it's very, very minuscule. I feel like Movsar Evloev is filling out that 145-pound frame. He is just getting better and getting thicker every time he steps into the UFC cage. This is one that, again, I'm just going to caution everybody to pass on. I feel like Movsar Evloev is the rightful favorite. Maybe he should be minus 300. Maybe he should be minus 400. But I don't think he should be minus 700. I mean, this is getting to the point of ridiculousness. He's minus 350, minus 650, minus 700. I see a minus 750. He's just absolutely chalked to hell across the board. Everybody jumped on this one. And there's a half decent chance that this thing goes to a split decision, and it could go the wrong way. He is the smaller fighter. Nate Landwehr never slows down. This guy's takedown defense hasn't been overly tested in the UFC, but we know that he's got a good get-up game. So if Evloev doesn't have a full 15 minutes of gas taking down a guy like this that just never stops for that full 15 minutes, this thing's going to get hairy. I like Movsar Evloev to win the fight, but don't go anywhere near this thing at minus 700. Next up, we've got Roman Dolidze coming in at 205, the big boys. He walked right up to the scale. Big flex. This dude is built, although he does need to shave a little bit. He's got he's not going to look good for the UFC cameras. He needs to take care of that before they do his highlight shots. And then Allan comes in at 205 himself. Now, this guy was the one we were talking about, coming off a USADA suspension, which is something I particularly like to take advantage of. When they come off that USADA suspension, you never know how they're going to look. They pop for performance-enhancing drugs. Now they're not going to have that in their system. What do they look like? How do they show up on the scale? And I'll tell you how he showed up. He showed up flabby. He's got some man boobage going on. This is a guy that was just a brick shithouse the last time he got on the scale that we saw him, but you gotta wonder how much of that was due to the performance-enhancing drugs. So now that he can't have those and he's off of his cycle, he doesn't look nearly as physically impressive. Going up against a guy like Roman, that's not a recipe for success. Dolidze is much, much bigger than this guy. When they faced off, I was surprised by the size difference. I thought Allan was going to be much, much bigger. I thought it was going to be kind of a 1-to-1 ratio. They'd size up pretty well. But Dolidze's got a decent, solid size advantage on this guy, and he was stone cold at the weigh-ins. This guy is deadly. He is dangerous. I like him. And sitting at about minus 200, I think he's parlayable. I think taking him inside the distance at even money is solid. And I got to give a shout out to my boy, MMA Predictions Guru. He tweeted this one out, and it's one that we kind of failed to talk about, is Dolidze by submission. This guy is a high-level Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, and if he's going to be facing an opponent who's comfortable in the grappling realm like Allan, this thing can absolutely hit the mat. And if it hits the mat, he is very live for a submission. Now, the only issue with that is that he's also very live for a knockout. This guy fires bombs in every single limb that he has. So I'm not saying to go out there and just smash that submission prop. I'm saying there's good value on it. If you can get 5-to-1, 6-to-1, what have you, that's a good prop to throw a little sprinkle on. But this guy absolutely could just wing another head kick knockout and close the show in the early minutes of this fight. Next up, we've got the women. Montana De La Rosa taking on Taila Santos. Montana De La Rosa came in at 125 3/4, so she did make that weight. She moved a little slowly to the scale, and she looked all right when she was on the scale. Taila Santos came in at 125.5, and she looked great. She looked determined. I like what I saw from her. When they faced off, once again, we've got a situation where I expected these women to size up well. Montana De La Rosa does have a little bit of a size advantage, and that's a concern for when we saw Taila Santos, because she has been out-grappled before in front of us. Against Mara Romero Barilla, she really struggled with the grappling offense, and if she's going to end up being the smaller fighter here, that is a bit of a problem. I thought that she was going to have at least not a size advantage, but I thought they were going to match up. So the fact that she's a little bit smaller, that may cause some problems. It was a respectful face-off. I like Taila Santos to win this fight, but now she's sitting about -225, -230. There's a rogue -260 out there. That's too high. I don't feel comfortable parlaying her. This is one that I think I'm just going to end up passing on, because I did think Taila Santos was going to just chip away at Montana De La Rosa, and I think Montana De La Rosa didn't have the best fight camp for this fight, but she does have the raw skill set that it can take to make this a hairy fight, maybe take this thing to a split decision, keep it close, get that grappling going, and shut down the offense of Taila Santos. So I'm just going to sit back. I'm going to stay off it. This is one I don't need to risk my money on, so we're going to pass on this fight altogether, even though I think Taila Santos probably does go ahead and squeeze out a decision. Gabriel Benitez taking on Justin Jaynes. This is one I'm very interested in. Benitez came in at 155.5. Nothing to report. Really quick weigh-in. He looked good, but he got on, he got off. Justin Jaynes came in at 156, and this kid moved with a purpose. He looked determined. Now, we talked about this before. He's kind of riding high on his emotion. He's a bit of a more intense guy to begin with, and he's got his terminal father in his corner for this fight. He's looking to put on a show. When these guys faced off, Benitez, we know he's the bigger man. We know Jaynes is supposed to fight at 145, generally speaking, but he's got better gas and extra pop in his punches up at 155, so he's got a little bit of that little dog syndrome going on. He was getting up in the face of Benitez. He looks ready to go, but it was a good face-off. There's no bad blood between these guys. That's just kind of how Jaynes is. So what I am looking for on this one is I'm just waiting for that line to keep on creeping up. I already made the bet on under 2.5 here. I expect the under 2.5 to cash, regardless of who wins this thing, because Jaynes is coming out in the first round looking to absolutely light up his opponent for his father, give him the best day of his life when it's the last opportunity he's going to have to compete in front of him. That kind of push, that kind of wind in your sails, that can carry people. And I think that Jaynes is very much live here. Now, the flip side of that is that if Jaynes can't get the first round finish, then he's taking on Mowgli Benitez, who is a very, very powerful striker. Got a nasty body kick, which just shuts people down. If you've never taken a shot to the liver, let me tell you, your whole body feels like you've got static electricity and you cannot move for a couple of seconds. That's why you see people go down when they get hit in the UFC from the liver shots. It looks like nothing. They can move just fine about 15 seconds later, but right on impact, it literally shuts your body off. Well, Mowgli's got that going for him. On top of that, he's nasty on the ground. He's got a sick jiu-jitsu game. So if Jaynes doesn't get the first round finish, if he slows down, he may be at the mercy of Benitez. So my main bet is going to be the under 2.5 here in this one, but I'm waiting for all that money to flood in on Gabriel Benitez, and it's doing so. I'm going to spike Justin Jaynes. I'm going to throw a little bet on him as soon as he gets to his peak underdog level. Right now, I can see him out there about plus 180. We see him as high as plus 210 in certain places, but it's kind of balancing plus 185, plus 190, kind of in that range. I want 2-1. I want that plus 200. If I can get plus 200, plus 225 by the time the fights kick off on Saturday, that's what I am looking for. Now, if the buyback flood starts to happen, if it starts to dip down and all I can get is plus 190 or plus 185, I will take it. I'm going to bet Jaynes. It's just a matter of when and how good of a line I can get. Next up, we've got OSP taking on Jamahal Hill, maybe my favorite spot for this post-weigh-in show. We've got OSP coming in at 207.5. That's right. OSP missed weight, folks. First time in his career he has ever missed weight. And let me tell you, he looked bad on the scales. He looked exhausted. And I've talked before about the dead eyes. He got up there and there was no fire. There was no spark. He looked awful. And the fact that he's not cutting that last pound and a half tells me that that's as far as he can go. He had to get down there, and he's not able to cut any further and keep this fight still on. I already had a bet on Jamahal Hill. I already like Jamahal Hill. Sorry, I keep pronouncing the H in there. My bad. So I lean to John Anik, the man who knows his pronunciations. I thought it was pronounced Jamahal Hill. However, Anik is the one who's the expert on this, and he calls him Jamahal Hill, so we're going to roll with that. Jamahal Hill came in at 205.5, and prior to weighing in, he actually tweeted about OSP. He talked about being a professional and said, pay me, because he knows he's getting a piece of OSP's purse, win, lose, or draw. He came out relaxed. Dude's got a swagger about him. I like this kid. I really think he's going to be a problem in the 205-pound division. He gets on the scale, he makes weight, and he yells like a pro. Absolutely calling OSP out. That gives just a little extra edge to Jamahal Hill, in my opinion, for this fight. And when they faced off, Jamahal Hill sizes up really well with OSP. OSP is a guy who is not out of place at heavyweight. He is a big dude for 205, and Hill is sized up extremely well with him. OSP is going to have 1 inch in height, 1 inch in reach, which is not a lot for what he's compared to when he fights at 205. And it was a good stare down. I mean, Hill, you just can't shake this guy. He's got that quiet confidence about him. He knows what he's doing. He knows what he's about. And I went ahead and hammered this line, folks. Instead of doubling down, I tripled down on Jamahal Hill. I have a total of 4.95 units risked to win 3 on Jamahal Hill. I already liked him going into this fight. He was a bet that I had already made. Seeing the weigh-ins, Hill looking great, OSP looking bad. There's no way OSP, coming in missing weight, looking out of shape like that, has the gas to take down Jamahal Hill for a full 15 minutes. Unless OSP comes in, takes Hill down once, and locks up a choke, which I don't think he's going to be able to do. He's going to be in for a long night because Hill's get-up game is nasty. This kid just does not stop. He will not settle for bottom position. He gets back up to his feet, and then he puts it on you with volume once he gets up there. So yeah, OSP might get a takedown, but he doesn't have the gas tank to take Hill down 5, 6, 7, 8 times. He relies on that submission and getting it with the 1 or 2 times he gets his takedowns. And Hill is not a guy that's going to slow down. He's not a guy that's going to gas out. OSP was able to take out an opponent his last time out at 205 that slows down, that gasses if he doesn't get a first round finish. So he was able to take advantage of his opponent fading. Well, in this fight, Hill never fades. I think this is an awful stylistic matchup for OSP. I know there's a lot of support for OSP out there. I know a lot of people like that guy, and they're gonna have bets on him, but I am all in here on Jamahal Hill. I like this kid. I like what I see, and with the post weigh-in read of OSP looking bad and struggling on the scale, I'm in. That's where my money's at. Let's go. We've got the main event coming up next. Jack Hermansson taking on Marvin Vettori. Marvin Vettori, not Morvin. The Italian dream. We've got Jack Hermansson came in at 185.5. Marvin Vettori came in at 186. And I got to tell you, these guys looked amazing. Both of them looked amazing. Jack Hermansson absolutely shredded on the scale, looked ready to go. Marvin Vettori is just thick, muscular, gets up there, pumped up, pounds his chest, and screams, let's fucking go, after he makes weight. I love this kid. I love the energy he brings. And when they faced off, they're both pumped up. They're both excited. They're both very, very confident in this matchup. And Marvin Vettori, the thing that really stands out to me is just how thick he is. When you get a guy around the chest and the back, when he's just wider than his opponent, that's a good sign to me. You see those guys have the physical strength advantage. They're able to just kind of control their opponent's bodies and move them around where they want to be. And I think that's what this fight is going to come down to. It's going to come down to the takedown defense, the wrestling, and the submission defense of Marvin Vettori. If he's able to force Jack Hermansson to stand with him, I think he wins this fight very easily. If he's able to wrestle Jack Hermansson, stay on top, and obviously not get choked out, I also think he has a very solid path to victory in this fight. I got Marvin Vettori at minus 130. There is nothing at the weigh-ins that will change my mind for that. Jack Hermansson looked fantastic. Marvin Vettori looked excellent as well. So because of that, it's a wash. I think that my read on this fight stays right where it was. There's no weakness in either of these guys. It's a close fight. I know there's a lot of support out there for the Joker, and I don't blame you because the kid is sick and he can finish a fight with a submission at any point in time. So I totally get that. But I think Marvin Vettori is the more well-rounded fighter. He's younger, he's hungrier, he's trying to crack up into that top end of the division. And honestly, he's more durable. We've never seen this guy get finished. We've always seen him be able to dig deep and power through what his opponent has to offer. I think this is a spot where Vettori steps up. I think this is the spot where he finally gets his opportunity to crack into that top 5 of the division and shout Israel Adesanya's name looking for that rematch. I'm in here on Marvin Vettori. I like that side. It's not a home run spot by any stretch of the imagination. This is a dangerous fight, and it could end at any point in time. So I'm also not playing the total on this one. I kind of expect this one to get into the championship rounds. I think it's going over. So the over 2.5 is a lean that I have. I kind of looked that direction. But with the submission offense of Jack Hermansson, you can't question this thing being over in the first or second round if Vettori just makes one tiny little baby mistake. That's the post-weigh-in show, folks. We got a lot of good information this week, so it's a little bit long. Do me a favor, like this show. Please share this out. Give me a retweet so we get the word out to everybody. Good luck on all your bets this weekend. You will catch me live tweeting UFC Vegas 16 on Saturday. This is Clint from the Die Hard MMA podcast wishing you good luck. And let's roll.